Hello, everyone. Raise your hand if you can hear us or if you can see us, or if we have any tech difficulties, let us know. More and more people are joining, so we are just waiting for everyone to start coming in. Some familiar names up there. Yep. More participants. Ashish, can you let them in? There are like 30 more. Yep. Thank you for joining, everyone. We are getting more people in before we start in. But I just want to thank everyone again for taking the precious time out of your evenings and coming here with us. We have a really great session on our hands, which we will start shortly. You will have to sit through just this part where we are letting people in. There are 30 more people, Ashish. If you can please let them in. Um,
Well, they're coming by
Perfect.
themselves. I don't think
Oh, okay. Cool,
I
cool,
have
cool.
to
Okay,
let
okay.
them
So it's
in.
the same. Yeah, okay, okay. Got it. Yep. So today we are going to discuss about how to buy like a buyer's agent. And for those who don't know, I am Rahul Rangwani. I'm a mortgage broker. And Ashish is an excellent buyer's agent. So you are in good hands, both in terms of finances and in terms of properties and real estate. Ashish is a great buyer's agent. I have worked with him for quite some time, and he will be the one giving you the guides, the tips and tricks, ins and outs of how it is like to be a buyer's agent and what do they actually do. How can you buy like a buyer's agent yourself using data and the tools that they use. So whatever happens behind the 15 of the ball, we may not be able to deliver in this short span of time that we have, but we will try our best to give you the max value out of this. We will take questions on and answer everything. Um, and so far we have a quite good number of people, and that should help us get started. So, Ashish, before like people start listening to you, they should also know who you are and what do you do and why should they listen to you. So, can you please first of all give them some intro about yourself? Ashish, you listening to me?
Yes, I can. I'm just sharing my screen as we speak
Oh,
as well.
perfect. Yeah.
So, hi everyone. I'm Ashish, founder of Auswide Buyers Agency. And yeah, just a little bit about what I do and why I do. My family, my clients, my dog with a rose. Apparently, I don't swipe left on properties for living, but some days it kind of feels that way. So, um, why should you listen to me? I've personally bought and sold about 11 properties in past 10 years, finished two developments. Um, three are ongoing. I've built a portfolio worth about $7 million. Um, and no, I didn't inherited anything from a rich uncle or married a really rich girl. So whatever I built here.
That doesn't
I,
that doesn't like hurt if you marry into money, but then just to get a
I
heads up.
wish, I wish, but the point
Yeah.
was, it's not a rags to riches story as well. But I came here with $4,000 when I sold my car and bike in India, and I've basically whatever I've built here. But I think one thing that has worked really well for me is making decisions. So that's why I help people to find the one instead of swiping through dating apps. I swipe through off-market deals, real estate, zoning maps, rental appraisals, comparable market analysis, and whatnot. So um, that's sorry. So that's again. This is about my portfolio. I started really small. And after about 8, 9 years, I realized I have enough in equity that I can generate an income of 100, which was my goal. But rather than there's no retirement, right? It's doing what you love, and that's what pushed me into the industry in 2028, 2018, 2017. I was made redundant. 2018, I started working part time. 2021, I started my business full time after gaining a lot of experience. So, um, raise your hands if you feel buyers agents just charge $15,000 for nothing. I've heard that a lot. Raise your hands. Yes, absolutely. But that's where um, I've always felt if you've got the knowledge, I share your point of view. Rather, I feel bad when people give you properties, or even buyer's agents gives you properties, and they don't have a reasoning behind why they've given what they've given. And that's why I'm here today, because the idea is not to withhold the information. The idea is to give away everything that I know, because a DIY investor, I was one of those, and that's how I've learned so much. A DIY investor would like to learn. Sorry, I could hear the they would like to learn and impart the knowledge. For anyone else who need that support, they are a very different audience. So coming back, so what I've done is sold three properties, deployed the money into development. So why stay where you are, right? You have to grow. How do you grow? Because if you are growing, you can showcase that your professional working with you is growing, which means he's always at the next level. And that means a good consultant or mentor can drag you to their level as well. If they are not growing, you're not growing either, which is just like the concept of a team. But going with bigger developments is again getting better cash on cash returns, better profit on total costs. And the last two developments I'm planning to hold because they're commercial, they're going to give us anywhere between 7 to 9% net return. So this particular number four, $10 million in market value, at 10 million, it gives us 6.25% net return, but on our cost, which will be about 6.5 to $7 million, it's going to give us 625,000 a year in rent. And that's the extent of developments I've jumped from. And the second thing that I've done is I've started focusing on cash flow properties more than anything else. We see number 9 and 10. But anyways, that's a little bit to showcase that your professionals are growing. Rahul, just let
Yes,
me know when can
Ashish.
I start. I'm desperate to start.
Ashish, before that, there's a question that everyone has in their mind that if you are a buyer's agent, why are you doing this? Why do you want to give this value, whatever we are going to do today? So if you can touch upon that a little bit, please. Like, why? What is in for you?
Good question. Look, I've always felt the the knowledge, the knowledge is there to give, and someone who wants to do it themselves, they will never employ a buyer's agent because they don't believe in the work or the person or the fee, or their notion of belief is that they can do it better, which is absolutely fine. My point is, whatever you're doing, at least don't make a mistake, learn more and then do it. And there are people out there who don't have time, who would like to give it in the hands of professionals. And I'm sure people who we support, like I get clients from friends and acquaintances who I've supported in one way or the other, and they know that the person behind that knowledge is a genuine person and they have the right knowledge. So, look, if not from here, maybe the friends and family will get referred, but at the end of the day, the way I've won my business or the way I've jumped into business is purely through education and mentoring. If I could have developed a course, I would have loved to. I've got a lot of limitations on time, but that's why I want to give back with whatever I've gained.
Very honest answer for that. And that's what we do here as well. Like, the people who have been following us, we have done previous webinars on first home buyers, just giving education, no promotion, no sales tactics. We have done with our lawyers previously for sorry, what was that again, for wills and estates, that we did a great session on
Yes,
that. So we got an
absolutely.
expert on that. So we try to give as much value as possible and as much knowledge and information as possible through these webinars, because we believe in education. So coming back to again to the point that in hand that everyone is here for, how to buy like a buyer's agent. So Ashish, let's just jumping into that. If let's say I'm a blank state, I'm a new customer, new person who just was introduced to you, came to you and asked you the question, "Hey Ashish, XYZ referred me to you, my booker referred me to you, whoever referred to you. Um, can you help me buy a property? I'm a blank slate. So how do you start? What do you do next?"
Yeah. So look, I'll just quickly just give a shout out to my lovely team. No one person can do everything alone. Even in this webinar, I've got a lot of support from Bobby, who's a client success manager. She's been with us for last 4 years. Ambrosio, who's done an amazing acquisition. Acquisition becomes a full-time role when you are buying any more than 4 or 5 properties a month, and sometimes we do 8 or 9. Ambrosio is well versed with development sites and commercial acquisitions, and Chirag is an amazing acquisition person, very aggressive in dealing with agents. Chetan's a buyer's agent, and Chetan and Jatin on ground in Melbourne. So I'm based in New South Wales. Rajat has asked the question. I'm actually our office is headquartered in Norwest. In Melbourne, we have another office in Truganina, actually Williams Landing. And yeah, just the teams based in. I have someone in South Australia and Queensland as well, but they're contractors, so I just not included them. And there are currently these roles open, but this is not a recruitment ad. I promise you that. Now, before we start, look, I'd love to introduce Subir. Um, Subir was introduced to me by a lovely friend and client of mine. And when I first met Subir, and I hear that a lot, he said, Ashish, I can do it myself. I just don't have time. But the way I've done so far, he owned, again, owns a very highly priced property in Sydney, but he said I can do it by myself. But to this point, I'll message him again that Subir, based on this, you've generated $1 million in equity. But today he says he's been part of our every development, because after buying multiple properties, you don't know what else to do, especially if you're still working and you've got everything covered. And to this point, he says, Ashish, if I did not meet you, I don't think I would have achieved what I've achieved. So again, a testament to what someone in my position can do, just change lives. So coming back, look, what I'd love to do is I've made a lot of mistakes early on, fell for some pretty looking properties that turned out to be high maintenance, emotionally draining, and toxic. No, I'm just lying. Actually, all decisions have been fairly good decisions. I've I've got a mentor early on, and I've got a lot of value from the mentor. But I built a process so others don't make a mistake. And when you have a team in place, as a company as well or organization, you have to produce consistent results. So this has worked wonders for me and my team. And I hope you will walk away with a lot of knowledge. So think of me as your relationship therapist for the session. Meeting meets a private investigator meets a buyer's agent, and that's why I like to
Well,
call
we will
myself
think
a
of you as buyer's agent primarily, but if that
look.
fails, that's good to know that the others can get that value as well.
Look, the sort of training and personal development courses I've done, I think I can call myself a relationship consultant as well. But either way, for today, that's why I'm a strategist. I'm just not a buyer's agent.
Yeah.
So I'll walk you through the discovery. Look, if you don't know what you want, you'll fall for any property that flirts with your emotions. So it's very important to understand where someone is, what they're looking for, growth, cash flow, long-term commitment. So think of this as your Tinder profile. If you say you want something serious, but you keep swiping on beachside Airbnbs, we've got a mismatch and a misalignment. So if you tell me something that I can't meet, I'd be very upfront in and in letting everyone know that we're not the right fit for you. People come back with, we want 7 or 8% returns. We want 20% growth in the first year. I don't think property is for them. And that's the point of working with a discovery call. Won't spend much time on it. Coming to strategy. So this is where you realize buying 5 properties in 5 years sounds very cool until you meet your mortgage broker who says, it's not you, it's just the banks. So strategy is very important. For me, I've taken a lot of learnings from the responsible lending from mortgage as well. It's very important that I understand where people are. And this is a recent call that I've done. Um, so I note everything where people are, what their family situation and circumstances is, where they want to retire, why they want to retire, what income they want to retire on. And there's a lot of education there. So I'll probably send an email where there's a 22-minute video that helps in goal setting concepts as well. But this is not goal setting. But the point here is our process is very
Understand,
educational
you
too.
basically need to understand their site, what they want, and customize as per that. It's not like one shoe fits all sort of an approach in that. Basically, you will be understanding, okay, do you need capital growth more, or what suits your portfolio at this stage the most? Do you need an SMSF property the best, or what would be your solution? Like a doctor, if you go to the doctor and they don't just prescribe you the same medicines to everyone. They will check and go as per your treat you as per your ailments. So that's what I think is this will do for you in that instance as a buyer's agent. You will understand what they need. It's not gonna be like people who are not going to buyer's agent. They are just looking at whatever media they are consuming. Whether they're using YouTube, they are just looking at top five hot suburbs. But in that, which property suits them the most? Which suburb suits their requirements the most? That needs to be discovered first. So I think that's what this strategy call will do, in my understanding. Is that correct?
Spot on. And going through, in a nutshell, let's talk about our future together.
Yeah.
Understanding what their net worth is, when they've started, where they want to go. It's like a not just 3 to 5 year plan, but a 10 to 15 year plan. Just I hope we don't break up when our interest only period ends. So that's sort of conversation we do. So again, won't spend much time on it. This point is, even if you are working by yourself, you really need to sit and understand what is your goal. So you are not mindlessly flicking through the profiles on real
Yeah.
estate, I mean. So,
So
yeah,
So this is the first step of that. That's just, strategy part of that, understanding what will suit them the most and making the strategy for them. That in the next few years, this is what you can achieve given your financial situation. Where does what's the next step in that? Is there like the finance, like the what they can get right now, or where does that come into the picture?
look, generally before this call, and this is where the team comes in, but before this call, I'll always ask the clients or prospects to go back and at least talk to their mortgage broker or the bank as to what they can borrow.
Yep.
It's very important before this call, they come back with what they can spend. So I understand and I can guide accordingly. Someone wants to spend $200,000. I don't think I'm the right person. Someone wants to spend $1 million and expecting 1,200 a week in returns. We can plan something and see how we can map out. Someone wants to spend $500,000 and buy within 30 kilometers to the city. And that's the sort of conversation that happens here. But it's very important at this point. We should start building our team. At this point, generally, people have gone to planners, accountants, mortgage brokers, buyer's agent, yes or no. And I literally believe we'll make this buyer's agent redundant in this conversation. But coming back then from here, you need to work with conveyancers or solicitors, and if they are licensed to work in the respective states, what is their timeline? Can they respond back to you, even your broker? If you found a property on a Saturday, I've seen so many deals getting missed, so many people losing their 0.25%. Even looking at this point, you should be clear on which state you are
Not my
looking in.
clients, just to clarify.
All good. And this is where a good professional makes a difference. And as I've said, if your professionals are not growing with you, they're not dragging you to their level. Basically, actually, they are dragging you to their level, even if you have the potential to grow beyond them. So yeah, just anyways, I'll cover the rest later. But this is the next step. Um, and now is when we move to our pillars. So I've
That
literally
I we also mentioned that the finance part, and which we also discussed that how to structure the finances, how important is that. I also need to touch upon that if we can, because I believe a lot of people, like, it's an old age-old saying in property market that real estate is a game of finance with some properties thrown in that. So at the end of the day, what you want to do is just maximize and get the max of your what you are putting in. That's the end goal. Properties and everything is just a vehicle to get to that destination. So in that, again, as you mentioned, that everyone has a different goal. Everyone has a different situation. So let's say that if someone comes to me who has started a new high earning job, but they don't have a bigger deposit, So which what we call a Henry, a high earner but not rich yet. So when those people come to me, there are options for them, just in the sense that they can buy a house, an investment property with 5% deposit plus costs. So you don't need to save up to 20% or even 10% plus LMI. There are options in the market where you can go with 5% plus LMI and the closing cost as well. So in that, like that is one approach for them. So surely there are additional costs involved as that LMI would be higher, rate would be higher, X, Y, Z. But then you don't have to wait and miss out on that capital growth of that 1 year, which will take you to save that extra deposit. You can select that 40, 50,000 on the property by spending that 10, 12,000 more in this instance. And let's say there is someone who wants to keep on buying properties, but the borrowing capacity is restricted to that 600, 700,000 limit or 1 million, whatever your borrowing capacity is. So you will not be restricted if you already have this team in place, which includes a good accountant, a good mortgage broker, and a financial planner as well, because they can tell you what sort of structures you can buy in, like if you can buy under trust where we can eliminate that trust liability for future purchases, as long as you can come up with the deposit. That's when, like, you can like get to the 10, 12 properties in today's time. Otherwise it's very unlikely you would need 500, $600,000 income to get to that mark, which hardly, like, a lot of people don't have. I'm not gonna say that no one has. Surely a lot of people have that. Even in the people who are attending, I can see already a few names. Uh, but for the rest of us, we have to follow um, some sort of strategy so that we can maximize on that. Again, like that is another instance where we can the broker can help you out in the first instance, in the first, like from the first property itself, so you can not just get restricted or hit a roadblock in the second or third one. But yeah, that's how important the finance and the structuring of that could be.
I agree, and that's why one part of conversation is if someone comes and says they want to buy two properties in succession, but they only are sitting on 250K, and that's the conversation saying, have you thought around paying LMI and just reducing the deposit to maybe 10 or 12%, which is the ideal sort of ratio of LVR? And look, I try not to step over a mortgage broker's toes or a financial planner's toes or an accountant's toes, right? So then comes a conversation where a lot of people are now pushing other people to create trusts, and this is where most accountants would come in. But a trust, if it's is an independent entity, there are pros and cons, so I won't divulge into trust. But talking about structures is also an important consideration here. So as I've said, I literally want to follow a holistic approach, and that's where a strategist come in, not a buyer's agent, because anyone can buy a 600K property, but not look at at your situation and your family circumstances and what is it that you're trying to do. So but anyways, to your point, yes, you're spot on there. Um, yeah. So again,
Not
coming
finance,
back,
no finance advice, as we mentioned. Speak to the financial planner and accountants as well. Get understanding of the tax part of that as well, because you may have to let go of some tax benefits in that, which we don't want to talk about. This is strictly in terms of borrowing capacity. You need to have a good accountant and a financial planner, and or a financial planner, just an omission there, um, to be able to getting the max out of these like finance strategies. That is the other side of the coin.
yep. And so basically, four pillars are across building a plan, looking at the data because vibes aren't enough. Negotiations, so we fight for you like your best mate at a bar. Um, then working through the due diligence, we check the roof and the baggage, including emotional baggage. And finally, the support. We are still there when the excitement fades away from a new relationship and the mortgage kicks in from your new
You really
properties.
committed to this dating analogy, Ashish.
So I would love to see the hands if there are any singles here or people who felt, the person was amazing, just like pictures on a property, and then suddenly they realize, what's in the background is not what it seems is, right? I don't know how many have got that experience, but that's why I brought in that dating analogy. You don't want to be sitting with a person that's doesn't
We
align
do have
with you.
we do have an interaction, but it's not about that. We have a different question which I will raise later on. It's about buying property interstate. Good question. We will get into that soon.
Awesome.
That's a question that we have come up in the chat here. How can we buy a property? There's another question from Christian.
So what we'll do is,
Christian,
if we quickly get through it and then steadily come to the
yep,
questions. Um,
let's do that. Yep, yep, yep.
yeah, awesome. So
Christian,
look,
we will circle back to you.
yeah, and building a portfolio plan. Now, again, sorry, what I'll do is I'll walk you through a few tools that we use for our clients. So one tool is called Prop Portfolio. The idea is to eliminate the spreadsheets, and this is where I've added all my portfolio in there. So you see wherever the properties are, when they're purchased. Look, we can maintain Excel spreadsheets, but again, everything changes over a period of time. So there are some really good tools out there, including Prop Portfolio, which talks about your equity, your portfolio value, your borrowable equity. It talks also about your cash flow. Now, again, I haven't added depreciation yet, but yes, it is a paid tool. Um, that's why. So look, I think you can go directly to the tools and get the access. I believe this might be
Because
500.
a lot of people who have portfolios, they would want to understand which tools they are. Because I can already see there are people who have multiple properties in their portfolios. So you said prop portfolio is what you use, right?
I use two tools, and there are many out there. One, I use Prop Portfolio. The second, I use Game Plans. The Game Plans are a bit more sophisticated, but a bit more costly as well. That it may cost up to $1,100 a client, but that's for us. I think if you go them to them directly, it's $2,500 one time. And then Prop Portfolio is, I believe, $500 to $750 a year, or sorry, one time again. Fairly reasonable, but again, it helps you understand your numbers, right? And then a lot of times I've seen you don't get the reminders on your insurances and your property manager at one place. This works wonders for you. I'm actually talking to the owner, so we can build an asset plan, just something similar to this, which talks about the entire thing. What are your loans? What are your numbers? What is your rent? What are your realized profits, unrealized profits? I've written how the properties have been growing. But if you come back, how do I take assumptions? Like this property I've just bought. Last week I signed the contract and we bought it 6% less than market price, about $30,000. Um, but if you see even the properties that I bought back in 2015, 16, there is no property that's growing less than 7%, right? With an exception of commercial properties. So I'm not taking the value in consideration because they're mainly bought for cash flow. But
Mhm.
here, one property, this one is bought in Perth in 2023 and it's
Yep.
grown 16%. This is land only, by the way. So then I bought this one in Melbourne in 2022 and it's
Yep.
growing at 9% year on year. So this is what leads us to assume certain things, right? But all my properties are growing at a better than a usual pace. But you should know, and what is the cumulative growth looks like in each property. This is also where you see some properties not performing as they should, and it leads. Okay, there's Tony Robbins says, "What can't be measured cannot be managed." Right? It's a very important quote. So in
Yep.
order to manage something, you have to measure that, and this is where the tools come in. Now, then coming projections, which is really really important. Now look at if you look at game plans, this projection would actually include your target and see when you are meeting your target of $100,000 in income. For example, this gentleman would meet in 2035. Now we're able to reduce it to about 5 to 7 years by buying two commercial properties and one we've already bought. And the other thing that game plans give you is building scenarios. What happens if you buy two residential versus just two commercial, and how would the numbers change? And coming back to prop portfolio, you can do the same. I'll show you where, but then this is your passive income goal also. Like my goal is $100,000. If I still continue with the same, it talks about I'll achieve in 20 years. Why? Because the numbers or the loans have gone high. Then the risk assessment, I'll really love this. Based on your portfolio, what happens if the rates go up 0.5%? I'm up for $17,500 a year. And how and where is that distributed? And most important thing, as I showed, was cash flow. Like I'm sitting negative $150,000. Why? Because I've recently rejigged my portfolio. What I've done is I've extracted every bit of equity I can and every bit of borrowing to park all the money in my developments. So I'm down more than $900,000 at this point in developments, and as you can relate and appreciate, it's all cash that goes into the portfolios. But again, why? Because I've taken a step up, and that's where the tools and all come in. So coming back
Maximize
just
that
to
screen. Ashish, could you just maximize that screen
which
so
screen?
that
Sorry,
people can the one which you are sharing because it's just we can see the deck. I think the desktop. Is it just my screen or
the
I think it's
so
okay. Anyhow, I think we can see properly on that.
yeah.
And yeah, as you just mentioned, like what I'm getting from that is the most important neglected cost is the opportunity cost, which you can compare from that. Like if you do this, if you plan this way, or buy like whatever residential to commercial, or just plan your portfolio, you can keep an eye on that and just get to understanding of how your portfolio is performing and what you do to need to do next. So these tools are also some things that you use for your clients.
Yep. And then the other thing that I really love about this, and I think this also a very similar strategy I've seen in a course from PK, who tells you how to
Yeah.
buy property through data. So this tells you how much time do you need to retire and when will your goal be achieved of $100,000, for example. What I'll do is now this one, let's say the first few properties that I've bought, if I start to sell these properties, um, I'm achieving my goal in 22 years. Now, there is a small gap here, I believe. The gap is whatever passive income you are generating and the cash after consolidation that you get doesn't get adjusted in your loans. I think that is a gap. So I'm again talking to
No,
Kshitij,
I
who's the
understand,
own.
Ashish. So
Yeah.
you
So
like we have a limited time as well, so we need to come to the part of
absolutely.
strategy as well. So we get that. I'll just put the names of prop portfolio game plans in that, so people who want to get that should follow that. So moving on to
Works
the
well.
next
So
part
yeah,
of that.
moving on to
Sorry to cut
next.
you off. We just have to be like fast with our presentation
No,
as well
no,
because the
fully.
questions come
I am fully with you. Now, this is
and
where
people are waiting for the
everything.
juicy stuff. Where how to spot the location and the property. Let's jump onto that.
All right. So let's go on to the juicy stuff. I think we're going to spend the most
Yes.
time here.
Yeah.
Look, I'm going to cover the tools that we use. And
Yeah.
in your position, you can easily go to the tools and see what the hype of data is all about. And honestly, these are the type of courses and knowledge where people charge anywhere between $3,000 to $5,000. You're getting it for free. But if you
So
see
we
the
are here for
value,
today to get all this for free.
yes,
So
but if you see the value, I would love a thumbs up later. But again, as I've said, now this is the list of nearly 87 potential checks that, in a way, we do when we look at properties. Location, the trends, the population growth and projections, vacancy rates, rental yield
can
trends.
someone take a screenshot of this, Ashish, if they want?
I'm going to share the presentation with everyone, and
Perfect. Thank you.
along with this session, so people have access to everything. Look, nothing's hidden. As I've said, if you can do it by yourself, you're more than welcome. But I know, being in the position I am, the deals, working on the deals is can be done in minutes. But people have done it. A lot of people can do it. So again, looking at employment hubs, lifestyle hubs, activity hubs. So this is something that I like to call lifestyle hubs. Can be where people are retiring. Activity and even near to beaches and bays. Activity hubs are like your regional towns where there's a little bit of activity with a couple of economic factors. Something that I really avoid buying is in mining towns. I'll advise my clients against it as well. So commutes. So again, look, all the mumbo jumbo, but I won't cover this. I'd rather cover other parameters, and
Important
we'll touch
parameters in
base.
that. Yeah, if you can, even in the next steps, whenever you do the property search and all these things, if you can cover the basic ones, the most important ones that have to be covered that someone has to consider while looking for a property. If you can go through those, even in the next slides when you are doing it practically, that's going to be good.
Look, I'll start what DSR is all about. So DSR and DSR plus is basically demand and supply ratio. Now, a lot of people blindly follow DSR and DSR plus. Look, again, being in the type of person I am, I always question, where is this knowledge coming from? why the rating is like that, what defines the rating. And I've bought data, I've done spreadsheet analysis. To this point, I don't need much, but I'll still walk you through on what can be done. Um,
Just
again,
before we get into that, for those who don't know, DSR data, Edge tag, and all these are great tools which you can look up online later on. These are the websites and the subscription. You may need to pay up for subscriptions for them, but these are the tools that you could be looking to do your property research when you're looking into that. Those are just the basic ones. We have plenty, like I'm sure you use others as well. But given the time we have, if you can just cover the basics and just give the core essentials of that, please.
yeah. So again, buying in the wrong suburb is falling for someone who ticks all the boxes but still lives them up with their mom. So just uh, lame dating analogy. But look, I'll take an example of Victoria because a lot of people are scared. I reckon I can create some confidence around Victoria with this as well. Now, how to work out on the data? Search criteria, you can add houses and units. Statistics. So what I've done is added few. Actually, these are default. So demand to supply ratio. They've taken anywhere between 50 and 74. I'll remove the statistical reliability. The typical value is actually the asking price. It's not the median. So let's say do 450,000 to about, let's say, $700,000 covers most people's budgets. Now, talking about the yields, I'm never an investor who'll purely chase yields. You can add more parameters, looking at something like days on market, which means how much time the property takes to sell. Let's say the max I want to use is 120 days. And going further, by the way, the owner of this is Jeremy Shepherd. He says DSR is obsolete. You should start using DSR Plus. So this access is DSR Plus. It costs about $250 a month. And let's say you're taking 3 to 6 months access to this tool about, anyways, let me cover that cost a bit later. So auction clearance rate, I'm not worried really. Days on market, again, we've taken that in consideration. I think the other important thing that I would look at is stock on market, right? So which means what sort of stock is sitting on the market. I also believe this is not a complete website. There's a lot missing. But let's say we take about 4% for now, which means for every 1,000 properties, 40 are on the
For
market.
a
Yep,
layman, could you just simplify that just in small, like, the brief version of like what days on market is, just for a quick one-liner if you can, or whatever
absolutely.
parameters you're doing that.
Yep. So I'll look, okay, I'll take time to explain. So auction clearance rate, fairly reasonably explained. Average vendor discount means when you're buying a property, is there a discount in positive or negative? Days on market, how much time it takes for the property to hit the market and sell. Um, Again, demand to supply ratio. This is a DSR stat. Then they've added a DSR plus stat. DSR is basically 7 parameters. I think DSR plus is 14 or 18 parameters. This is all mumbo jumbo. I've never seen it working. So it works. In all on with all respect, due respect to the owner. Online search interest is how many clicks you see in a property. It's a mumbo jumbo again. You're making things more complex when we start to look at that. So percentage renters in market, again, a very good stat. What percentage is acceptable? I will take somewhere around anything beyond 46 to 48% is a red flag, which means there's so many renters on the market. Some people call it good, but it's not because you're competing with a lot of landlords to rent out your property. So these are the type of areas where suddenly something goes wrong, or people start to move out. A lot of properties hit the market and the rentals won't grow. Right. So percentage rent growth, sales growth.
All owner occupiers in that market, not renters and investors. That's what it tells you, that there are more investors in that, not as many owner occupiers,
Yes, so
right?
ideal ratio is 23 to 30%. But again, in worst cases, especially in suburbs of Queensland or South Australia, it even rough suburbs, especially, or the really low socioeconomic suburbs, it goes even up to 45 to 46%. Actually, it goes beyond that, but that's where I'll draw a line. Statistical reliability is very important. It basically tells you that there are at least 50 to 60 sales in a year. But you know what? I have used this to my benefit, and I'll explain in a little while. Because I found areas where The sales were very less, but they were right next to the very premium areas. One thing that I've learned is never to buy in the suburbs that comes in DSR, because, and don't get me wrong, there's so many people just follow DSR without knowing what's in the background and just run to buy there. Vacancy rates, so again, is a good parameter. Let's say we cap it at maybe 4.5% at this point. Why? A lot of people put it at 1%, 2%. Look, it's different times in the markets calls for different things. And gross rental yield, if you want to put something there, right? So these are the parameters. Then
Sure.
display and sorting criteria. What would you like to see? What sort of parameters would you like to see? I'll mark something, and then what I'll also do is maybe on DSR, for example, and I would like to see both ratios, because Jeremy says, this owner of the site, you should look at the plus factor more than the other, and then I'll sort it on in a highest to lowest. So when I click on export, I will see something like, just give me a moment. So, and this is the beauty of DSR. You start to see the data in Excel spreadsheets. So, Amy, I will come back to the questions. Let me finish DSR, and then there's a lot to cover. There's one more tool that I'd love to cover with all of you. So, there's a
Yeah,
lot
that's
to
what I'm
cover.
asking. That if this is obsolete, what is the latest one? Which one do you use, and which ones should
Look,
others also use?
I think anyway. So this is one.
Yeah.
The problem here is twofolds. One, this tells you only the hot suburbs. The suburbs that are currently hot, the areas that are currently hot, where you see a lot of demand, it still won't give you an idea on or knowledge on the area, right? It simply tells you that this is a suburb where you can buy. Now, for example, Dallas. Dallas is a suburb with a very different type of demographic. If I have to compare, that's like Lidcombe, Auburn, Granville in New South Wales. Um, so again, I think knowing what type of demographic is there helps you understand how you can jump in those markets and whether those markets are for you or not. Nothing wrong or right with any markets, right? So that's one problem. The second problem is this in no way compare anywhere to number of sales in a year. So that's another gap that I see. The third gap that I see is for areas, if you want to target newer properties, this won't stack up, right? People look at 1 or 2%, but in those areas, 2.5 to 4% is very common. But then you understand a different type of due diligence that you do. How many developers are there? How much land they've released? People see empty land. This is a lot with people even who've done educational courses. They see empty land in the surroundings. They say there's a lot of land. One developer, because I do land subdivisions, for one developer to do all the planning, acquisition, site works, and bringing the first lot to the market, we're talking literally 3 to 6 years,
Yes.
which, yeah, which are fairly enough if you have gone in a boom cycle, which is 3 to 5 years. But anyway, so this is how you get data in Excel spreadsheets. People just, and then you put filters and do whatever you want to do from there. I mark and I reject and I look at postcodes, but I focus on councils more than anything else at this stage, right? But this
Councils
tool
more
has
than postcodes. Yeah, councils more than the suburbs and postcodes. That's like the markets within the markets. That's what we want to concentrate on.
Yes, but step by step, if you want to go, I think understanding how last 35 years have been in Australia has really helped me in picking the states as and when they're going. So if you know those medians and when the last boom was in a state and how long the cycle was, for example, Perth is 15 to 18 years, Sydney's and Melbourne are 10 to 12 years. That's what helps you understand that the burst cycles are also smaller in those cases, right? So,
Mhm.
anyways, this is one, just knowing. So this is $250 a month
For DSR and everything.
for DSR. Now, this tool, I think, has caught a lot of attention, a lot of things to look at in
Yes.
this tool. This is
Now
about
we are coming.
500 bucks a year. This is called hashtag higher than average growth. Um, Look, it's really complex. You have to spend 2 3 months just to learn the tool and do some numbers, but I'll make it easy. So let's go to this is called a decile direction. You know what decile is? Decile is when you split the entire data into 10 year or in a cycle of 10. basically. If it's 100 sales, you do parameter and you do split into 10 sort of chunks. That is called a decile. I've been a data
Oh,
analyst. I've done
yeah.
some data migration in IT. Used to work for
Okay.
CRM. But anyways, coming back, the beauty of this tool, right? So first of all, let me show you what it covers. Let's go to all columns. Um, actually, yes. So this also has the same parameter, but this is way more complex. But this covers everything. But the
Mm,
question also I would ask, what is the basis of their ranking? Because I want to go deep, just not rely blindly. Just like you won't rely on a buyer's agent blindly, I won't rely on data either. Data is just one story. And I think following data, a lot of people who are new, including buyer's agents, they've left common sense, just thrown it down the drain. They
yeah.
say one suburb, let's say Craigieburn, which has less supply, and Mickleham right next to it, which has 4% vacancy rates. A lot of people say, oh, my score Craigieburn is 9, but my score in Mickleham is 4. You should not buy in Mickleham. I think, honestly, just with all due respect, they are fools. They're saying basically one area would grow and the other area would stay stagnant. Now, you do consider supply because there's less supply there. And now, looking historically how Mickleham went up in 2015-16, it was the first suburb to go up in that entire northern cluster. And then what I like to call spillover. When one suburb is fully filled, there is a spillover to the next door suburbs, right? So
Also
certain
what we call ripple
concept.
effect, which is also what we call a ripple effect, maybe. Is that the same?
So the two are different in a way. Ripple effect is yes, that the wave goes out. What I'm saying is the population. Like let's talk Sydney, where people said, I want to buy in the Ponds, but when they were priced out, okay, now I'll buy in Schofields. Too late, right? Why
Yeah.
can't someone go just a bit early into maybe Riverston or Schofields? Yes, they have to let go of certain notions, but they've saved money. But people only realize that when they're priced out. So it's from a population perspective and then from a growth and ripple perspective. So, but coming back, sorry, I'll walk them quickly through the parameters. Look, there's a lot
Yeah.
in this. Look at look at the beauty of this area, right? So area sales is very important consideration. Price change starting from 1 month going up to 10 years.
Mm,
So I'll tell you how price change can be looked at. So look here, the price change in 1 year is less than 10%, but price change in 10 years is more than 80%, which means over last 10 years, the area has been growing at least 6.5 to 7% year on year consistently. And this is after the bust phase in Melbourne. But in last 1 year, it has only grown by 10%. And when we start to search, we see all of these parameters. Now, there is something called IRSAD, which is your socio-economic advantage disadvantage score. Affordability index, how much the area is affordable.
yeah.
So what is the confidence? And then look at the parameters, right? So then rent change. I'm generally not worried about rent change because I'm not a cash flow chasing investor, but I'll balance the rental. So, and by how I do that is by just going into the right area. Then yields, cash flow, return on your investment, rental increases, volatility index, the growth indices. So again, three types of growth indices: your unit to house value ratio, renter to owner occupier ratio, stock on market, longer term supply trends, and shorter term supply trends. And this is
So,
why it gets
sorry,
a bit
Ashish, just one.
complex.
When we are trying, so that's what we are trying. We are trying to make the complex a little bit simpler for people. So what should we expect in state like your let's say the stock and market. So what is a good trend in that, and what is a bad trend? Let's say just keep it as simple. Days on market. What is a good trend? What is a bad trend? What's a good signal of there are things are happening which are like signaling that there is going to be growth in that. Like what should we go for that? What should we look for in that?
Look, one parameter that I really love in this is working on the longer term trends, which is 10-year trend. So history, there's a saying that history repeats itself always, and it consistently does. So again, there are few strategies filled in, which is certain parameters where they talk hotspots and warm spots. And what I've done here is basically 550 to 850 um, warm spots, which talks about, and these are built in generally by the owner of the website. And this is Matija Diholik. So
Yeah,
yeah,
great guy.
pretty good, yeah. But then now what you can see is certain selections, right? So already built in, um, you can go through every parameter here and take an explanation on everything. Then there's a pro version as well, which talks in detail about everything. Um, so, but keeping it simple again, I think DSR is fairly simple, nothing complex at all. Everything is in Excel. Then going to hashtag, I think it's deep dive into the data. If really, really someone wants to deep dive, let's say Cranbourne West only grown 3%, but has been growing at 124%. And then I deep dive and see, are there any acreages there because they ruin the numbers. But Golden Square is in Bendigo, amazing area. Bendigo is so tight in supply. I'll throw a dart on Bendigo and buy there and it'll grow. Because just
Bendigo is that good, so means.
absolutely. And certain suburbs people are not even aware of, even in outskirts. Again, I can take examples. Munda is another good suburb. Kilmore is outwards. So actually, I'll stick to data. I won't go into property
I think,
examples
yeah,
a bit.
once you start giving suburbs, you are giving 50,000 worth of free, which I am here for. Listen to the suburbs more than
So, and this is you can change any council. So the beauty about this is SA4. So on AB at ABS level, they do not measure it on the basis of suburbs and councils. They measure it on the basis of statistical areas. So you can actually go and check statistical area 3 profile in Victoria, for example, and
yeah,
you will find those maps, statistical area level 3 maps. So level 2, so level 2 is equivalent to maybe suburb, level 3 is equivalent to council, but they're not councils, they're different areas. And then when you design criteria, name, coding structure, you can actually open the map. Sorry, just I have to search for the map, but if you go to the map, you'll actually see how the statistical area is defined in a map as opposed to LGA. Now, coming back to our hashtag, so this is how the data is there. And again, the beauty is you can also export this in Excel spreadsheet, but I think this is a quick indicator for you. And as you can see, Craigieburn is one suburb which lists at this point, and everyone is running towards Craigieburn to buy. And as I've said before, I'd like to be a little bit innovative and not make it too fancy, but also identify some suburbs in the surrounds where we can buy. But at this point, if you buy,
that
it has,
when everyone is running to that suburb, it boosts the price in the short term. But because the fundamentals are not going to stack up, the rental is not going to increase in the long term. It's going to be a money loser or not going to grow as much as the other suburbs. So that's when, like I think the data plays such an important role that it gives you the confirmation and assurance that you should buy into this place. When everyone is running into that, it's going above the median price. Maybe you should not buy this place. This is what it can tell you from that.
yes, and this is where you need to then track the councils. Some councils are late bloomers. So you pick those councils even during the midst of the boom phase and you can still make money. So I've done a lot for some of my clients who are on these calls by identifying those areas. And because there were not enough sales in those areas were never part of any of the websites. And how do I get the confidence? Because I've gone through these strategies over and over again, and I'm personally invested. That's basically, if you recall, I was talking about a development which is number 4. I bought in that area, and this by paying just $50,000 went up by $400,000 in about 15 months' time. Just the commercial land, and the houses next to it we were buying at 420, and now those houses are worth 650, and I'm talking just 2 years. Um, so that's where again, but point is at this point this says that everything else is stacking up well for Craigieburn, and you can go ahead and buy there. But then comes, what deals do we get? I'll come to deals as well, right? I'll come to deals. So coming back, so this is how the data is interpreted, right? What you need to look at in the data. there are ample other things. Stock on market. Keeping it simple, stock on market. What is inventory? Inventory is stock on market. Now, this is where DSR had stock on market percentage. So, four
Yeah.
properties per 100 are on the market. And then what are the yearly sales? So four properties on market today, average is, let's say four properties on the market today. Then we look at building approvals. There's something called BA ratio. So again,
Yeah.
how many properties are hitting the market? We total that. We figure out what could be there in next 1 year and what is this inventory means. Now we see, total it and see how many months it will take for those properties to sell. And that is when you divide it by the yearly sales, and that is called inventory, right? And
Mm,
then if it is 4 to 6 months, amazing. Now, areas like, why do people avoid western suburbs of Melbourne? Wyndham Vale, Manor Lakes, Memburin, Werribee is okay, but still it's part of that. Why? Because there's so much of stock there. There's 14 months worth of stock at this point, not counting the building approvals, right? And should be scared listening to that, but most house and land packages are being sold there. So, and that's the point, right? So, but yeah, just coming back. So, um, hold periods. This is again a very good indicator that lists how long people hold those properties in that suburb. 7 years is amazing, right? Then
mm.
hold period, long-term supply trends, short-term supply trends. Now, this is just making things complex, but I'll keep it simple. I don't think one needs to look at that if they understand the
We,
markets, right? So then vacancy rates, then short-term and long-term trends. I'm not worried about clearance auctions and things like that. It's just a good indicator, but not so good indicator. Rest of the parameters, I will not look at this website, and then I've got other data. Now, this costs about $500 a month. If you're taking 3 4 months both tools access, it actually saves you a lot of time, because the problem is people do educational courses and they still say, oh, we don't get time to do everything manually. But I'm telling you, I'm giving you the tools where you can do everything in 15 to 30 minutes and then go to buy the property, because decision
great,
making
Ashish.
is
Yeah.
something that no tool or course will give you. Anyways, coming back, so this um, I think we are done. We've taken a lot of time. The It'll take more time, but I won't spend much time. So this is what data is all about. Now,
Yeah.
coming back to our trends.
Sorry,
Now,
just to sum up, we have some questions as well, which we will get to later on, but these are the parameters that you have to look into that, and then the suburb, and the most important, let's say, five factors that you had to look into that, just to cover, just to give the people that they want to start on their own, what should they do, which should they should not miss, which ones those would be.
that's a very good question. I'll simply say that DSR is fairly simple. What I would really look at is days on market, right? I'll keep it about 3 4 months, because to keep property liquid, and then it depends the type of property you're buying.
Yeah.
You can simply trust the demand and supply ratio, but what I say is you find a balance like 62-55 or 61-57. You can look at these suburbs, and then the demographic and all. I'll tell you, by the way, demographic can be seen. I think we've just missed one small part. Look at ABS. You can look at the descent. So I've searched Craigieburn, by the way, just because we were talking Craigieburn. When you look at the descent, and look, it may be alarming for some, not alarming for some. Um, a lot of divorced people or singles.
A lot of
um,
Coldplay concerts are happening there.
no, look, when you see the descent, you'd actually see a very alarming trend at times.
Yeah.
Australian, English, Indian, by the way, Punjabis are different.
Your people.
What do you mean, your people? I'm in India. I'm in Australia. So
Yeah,
yeah, but yeah,
absolutely.
just for some
Yeah.
reason, I think it's the ancestry, and for whatever reason, they've done Punjabi and Indian
It's good to
different.
have
But
these records, and it's good to have these records in front of you because, like,
the
it
other
helps you make a decision.
the other thing is country of birth. This will tell you about the demographic. So the top is Australia, of course. Second comes India. There's a lot of Indians there. Again, no harm in that. Then comes Iraq, and then comes Sri Lanka and New Zealand, and then Pakistan. So it is a very mixed suburb. right? Because I think in Melbourne, the key is keeping a mixed demographic, which is what I learned. But again, you can compare it with Wyndham and all of that. The other thing that I'd love to cover is there's two trends that are really important, and just do a 30% and do search there. One is the renter households where the rent payments are less than or equal to 30% of the household income. I use this parameter even when my properties are available
Very,
for rent.
very good. Yeah.
So, say for example, my property manager tells me, Ashish, a two household income family, one kid, the income is $160,000 and the rent of the property is 500 a week. So what does that mean? 25,000, which is less than 1/6 of their income. Until the point it is 1/3, I'm happy, right? So the other thing is where the area where now this should be, it's a percentage. How many renter households where the rent payments are less? 54%. I'd love to see this around 60, 70%, but 54 is okay, which means the suburb is growing. You see in Sydney, it comes to 40, 50%. So the second parameter is very similar, 30%. So owner with the mortgage households where mortgage repayments are less than or equal to 30% of the household income, which means people have a lot of disposable income. 67%
Mm.
is pretty good,
So which
right?
means that
So
they in future can buy a house in that location that they're renting as well, because that's a income that they have. So more or owner occupier are possible in that location if their household incomes are that good, then they can buy in that location eventually, whatever the renters or current population's income would be.
absolutely. And just go to ABS Quick Stats. This is all free information. You don't even have to pay for it.
Mm.
And there is a
Great.
lot,
Yeah.
right? There is a lot. So you can go through it, take your time. This is what you every year, every 5 years, the submissions that you do. This is all the data which is available at no cost. By the way, if someone is really techie, you can request this data in Excel spreadsheets and upload it somewhere. But the relationships are so complex, but that's a separate
Mm.
discussion.
Okay,
All
cool.
right.
Got
The
next.
other,
Yeah.
yeah, the other. Okay, coming back. So look, I don't know. It's just going way overboard. There's a lot to discuss still.
I think we will
Um,
also need to mention flood zones and bushfire zones in that
yes,
and
I'm
how that
coming there.
impacts.
I'm coming there. So look, now comes the property due diligence. So again, we ghost bad deals faster than a Tinder date with no profile photo. But apparently, it's not true to property where the profiles are amazing. So, property due diligence, look again, we built a 27-point checklist, but it is part of the checklist that I've shown you already. Um, coming to property due diligence, right? So, another application called Stash. It's not the source of truth, but it is pretty good. One stop
Property, you
shop.
said?
It's called Stash. It's called actually Stash BA, which is exclusively for buyers agents. But a similar app, I used to use Archie Star, but we paid like $22,000 a year for Archie Star,
Yeah.
and then I moved to Stash BA. This is again $400 a month. Look, 400 plus 500, 900 plus 250 for DSR. You're talking about $1,150 if you can do it in 3, 4 months because you safeguard your time. That is a cost of 33 to 444, 3,300 to $4,400 by yourself, provided you can spend time and you are quick at making decisions with the data that is available with you. If you are the type of person who's got analysis paralysis, it's not for you. So then you do intuition based buying, I throw a dart on the map, I'll just go and buy there. But coming back, look, what data can show you, and I'll be very quick in showing you that. First, Metro Map. This is North Kellyville. Someone's aware. You can go and literally check the dustbins placed in the backyard. And these images are updated every month or 2 months. There's sometimes date as well, like here, latest Metro Map. The beauty of this is you can go 2019 and see what was available at that point. These properties were still there with an empty land. You can go further back, but again, not the point of this discussion. I'll go to the latest maps. Coming back to the layers, now Metro Maps, it's an extra plugin, but it is included in about $400 a month. Street map zoning, this is for developments when I check, and I'll show you what we can do on developments as well. There's ample benefits of this tool. It's a one-stop shop. So coming back to contours, right? So I think contours is really, really important information. let me check. Let's talk Caboolture, which everyone must be aware is a suburb in northern Queensland. Um, what I'd like to showcase is, let's go to properties. Yeah, and I'll go to the streets map because the contours are your lines. So when you see a property has a lot of fall around it, the pink lines are the easements which gets you the right access, right? So like this one, this property has a fall, sudden fall on the side, which means there can be retaining walls. So what you then can do is look at the metro map and see if there's a retaining wall or not. Looks like there is one. The other thing is this is a drain, right? So you can see there's a drain. Look at flooding, but look, honestly, I won't trust this in flooding because a lot of areas which then we inquired with the agents as well, but this is a quick indicator, and then you go to the council maps to check the bushfire and floods. And if it's bushfire, like this is a small reserve. If it comes under bushfire, I generally won't be worried because I have an oceanfront land. Because there are small bushes, there is 10 meters worth of bushes, and they mark it under bushfire. Every new estate, because it's a field, gets marked under bushfire. So your job is to understand what is the level of bushfire. Low and 12.5 is okay. Coming back, biodiversity, heritage, high voltage power lines. Again, a very important consideration. This is heavy bushfire. I'll definitely avoid that. Voltage power lines, you can have a look, but it helps, right? So,
High
um,
voltage are the issue because even lenders don't allow above a certain LVR for that. And when you're buying with in that, you may not have that issue, but the buyer, when you're selling that, may have an issue on that because you may have a bigger deposit, but your buyer would not have that in future. So avoid high voltage power lines, even from lending perspective, and also because you don't want to get shocked.
Absolutely. And I'm just trying to find a good example. But let's pick this one. Let's say this is a property that you're buying. Now, high voltage power lines, there's some really good indicators. One, and this you can see in Google Maps as well. Can you see the tower here? So, and this is what is a good indicator because there are easements around it, 30 meters each side as well. Now, this property is literally under transmission wires. Such properties generally are sold anywhere between 5 to 15% cheaper. And then it depends, are these really high voltage power lines? So I'll go to Google Maps and I'll look at this street if I'm buying this property to see if this is actually a high voltage power line. Sometimes they are not, and this tool marks it, but it's a good start, is what I'm trying to say. What I love here
Yeah.
is proximity circles. If you're buying this property and I select it, the proximity circles simply tell you what the 5 kilometer radius and 10 kilometer radius is. Let me see if I can select this property.
Okay, so
Uh,
yeah, so in this stash property, you can see all these things and you can shortlist from that. We do have a
Spot
time
on.
limit, so we have to like
Yes.
fast forward that a
Okay.
little bit.
Yep. Sorry. So
I
I'll,
love your
I'll,
enthusiasm in that, but we also keep a track of time. We have questions coming up as well.
I
So yeah,
know.
so in this
All
we
right.
can go through that. Yeah.
So, okay. Now, um, going back
What about like the
and
next one? Like what about like the land to asset ratio, rental use? Obviously, those are the obvious points. You want more land, you want high
look,
rental yield, you want there to be
that's
the vacancy rate to be low. These are very like given at this stage. As we just need to specify and cover them like not broadly, but just explain that those has to be looked taken into consideration as like for whatever your needs are as well.
look, a lot of people go by land to asset ratio. I honestly think it's load of crap. Um,
Yeah.
an older property adds a lot of maintenance. Apologies, just for my French. So, and new properties also grow equally well in value. Some of my really small properties have done wonders in my portfolio, and they come on like 237 square meter land. The first property that I showed you, which had grown by 107 something percent, is actually um, it comes on a 237 square meter land. And this has been the best growing property in my portfolio. But the only beauty that I see
Normal,
is,
right? Those are not your regular occurrences. Like for general principles, people who are getting into that, what is the safest bet? Like just for that is applicable to
look,
everyone. That's what we
I think it's a balance. It doesn't matter. You can buy older property on a big lot. You can buy newer property on a smaller lot. keep in mind the valuation. Now let's come to valuation. The valuation is combination of both land and the property. So if the property is new, it will retain its value. People say build depreciate, and I used to say the same. But build depreciates over 40 years, right? So 40 years is not small. You're talking literally 3 to 4 cycles and 3 to 4 growth cycles. And if I talk in last 10 years, I've seen properties on bigger lots grown by 80, 87%.
Yep.
Properties on smaller land also went up by 80 to 85%. Now, the
Yep.
only advantage you get at this point is you can add a granny or a secondary dwelling. You cannot beat that, but if you're buying for development potential, I think you've made a big mistake.
Yeah. Granny is
So,
just a
yeah.
good way to sell the property. It's a good gimmick that you can have a granny flat on that. But building on that and actually like utilizing it properly, it's may not be the best worth of your money.
Spot on. So, and that's why a lot of people say, I think PK also mentioned 60% land, 40% on the house. Look, it's no one has 30, 40 years. We're
I mean,
talking
with respect
15.
to Peak, you may be right. Maybe his own experiences in terms, and it could be different. Don't want to discredit anyone of their
No, no, I'm not
whatever their.
discrediting. I'm saying it's a good indicator. At least you know there is a ratio like that. But when you look at newer properties, and a lot of people say newer properties don't grow in value. Um, I think that's again a misconception. When you value a property, you value the build and the age and the footprint on the build side. When it comes to the land, the location, the size, the shape of the land, everything matters. And that's where when you start to work out on the ratio, I think the only way you'll buy is by going to regionals because you've got a constraint on the land size. If you're buying 500 square meter in Melbourne for $500,000, guess where you're going? Not in Melbourne. You're going in outskirts. You're going in regionals. So and it's the same with Queensland. Like people were running towards Townsville. Again, no harm done, nothing wrong. I was buying in Brisbane. Growth is similar. The yield is 0.5% less, maybe 0.75%, but your holding costs are also 0.75% less. So you look at a holistic picture.
What do you think
So
of Townsville now? Because we do have someone in the group which I invited to. They have keen on thoughts on Townsville. Just to cover that, is it a good buy? Is it a bad? But at this stage, what do you think of that?
I think it's been growing. I don't know for how long. Again, if we consider that 3 to 5 years of generally a boom phase and look at population movements, I think it has grown really well. I reckon, and that's the point. Even if you get growth for next 1 or 2 years, when the market starts to move down, that last 1 or 2 years worth of growth is totally negated. Has happened in Perth, has happened in Melbourne. Anyone who bought in wrong areas in 2021 and 2022 has not got any growth. Rather, their properties have dropped in value by 10-15% at times. So um, you have to be very careful. We exited Melbourne in 2021, we exited Adelaide in 2023, and we exited Perth in 2024. And we're still buying in some areas in Queensland and then New South Wales as
I think
well.
Townsville, what I'm getting is that it's still has some
It's
potential, but it's still not the. It could be near the peak or
look,
like.
might be we Townsville, Rockhampton, Mackay, Yeppoon. Bundaberg, I like Bundaberg because of the vicinity. So you combine multiple economic factors. But coming to Townsville, there may be 1 or 2 years worth of growth, but you never know. It's the stagnancies are longer as well. So if you bought at the wrong time, you're literally looking at 5 to 7 years worth of stagnancy. One wrong move will take you back by 5 to 7 years in your portfolio. While someone is building an income in 8 to 10 years, just breaking
Yep.
even in that time. And that's what the risks are basically.
Got it. Got it. Okay, so
All
moving on to the
right.
next.
So look, property due diligence again. Coming back with building your team, talking to property managers if they can inspect properties or a local guide that can support you, even asking real estate agents. And we actually literally tell real estate agents if you miss anything in the video, we're going to come back and start to negotiate with you and haggle with you. Just make sure every anomaly is taken in consideration. So our clients are more prepared, and then you can put in multiple checks, one through real estate agent, maybe another one through property manager, then building and pest inspector. But the problem is if you keep missing out on properties, pay the professionals for their time. I see property managers complaining, Ashish, we have to go like 3 4 times at least for each property sometimes and is multiplied by 3 or 4 properties. Every professional has the worth of their time. I'm talking to someone, they need just strategy built, and I'm said, look, we've spent already 1.5 hours. Any more than that, I'm going to charge $300 an hour. And then they start to question, oh, but what are you going to give me? And I said, I've already given what I can give, right? So, but point is value whoever you are working with. You value their time, they value yours.
Agreed, 100%
So,
agreed. Nobody, like, even people like the client coming, they are working for whatever jobs, they would not want to work for free. So they like it's just everyone is gonna be like given that professional courtesy and given that credit and whatever the remuneration for that would be.
and that's the point, right? So this, I don't know, property manager is a thankless job. When did you give a voucher or a bottle of wine to them last time? Which I think they get ignored a lot. Anyways, coming back, look, my favorite topic, negotiations. Um,
Yeah.
so how does negotiations help, right? So actually, you know what? There's a lot in property again. It's my team follows a checklist, and just for the sake of covering, I'll cover it just so everything else is
Yeah.
covered. When you're putting a property out, there's things that visible red flags on building structures, symmetries, backing or fronting onto major roads, street appeal, which means going to the street views and checking T junctions, public housing any more than 10% in that area or any more than 15% in the pockets. And where do you check that? You check that in microbursts. Again, I'm looking at Craigie You expand a little bit and you start to see pockets. And this is also based on SA2 and SA3 pockets. So while this is opening, I'll go back here. This is 5%, which is fairly acceptable. Look, 10% means of 100 houses, there are 10. But the problem is you then go and check the ownerships in the houses next door. And you can, only way you can check the ownerships is through CoLogic. Um, I think I opened it, but yeah, this here.
Yeah.
So here, for example, when you see the houses are owned by State Housing or Public Housing Commission, sorry, and that's where I think I saw 162 are not uh, street. Quakers Hill. Let's go to Quakers Hill. Um, you expand this, and again, this is CoLogic. This also has layers. One of the layer is owner's name. Um, I go expand on this property, and you'll see while you can see all the names, and look, I can't tell you how much data you can look at.
Yeah.
I can tell you people's profile by looking at the names. I can get their numbers and whatnot to contact them. Here, housing department. It says housing department. So
Hmm.
I would never be buying in vicinity to that. Immediately back, immediately left, or immediately right. Why? Because the tenants will keep on changing, and these tenants don't care about the properties at times. Again, no disrespect to anyone, but I'd like to safeguard my tenants in my property. So coming back, this is where if, and even in the nearby pocket, if it's more than 15%, I'd like to see that. And what happens is my team will submit this form to me. And if they click it, I want the reason for consideration. Maybe it's a very tight market, it's a changing market, like Kings Park, for example, in New South Wales. Is it impacted by things like chicken farms, supermarkets, schools, churches? I will never buy in the vicinity of school, immediate vicinity, because the roads get blocked and jammed. The orientation of the land,
Intuitively,
overlay.
you think that you want to buy near schools because like you just think that your tenants might have kids, they want to go to schools, it's close by. So you want like when you think of intuitively, you want to do that. But when you look at data and you know what you're, as a bias agent, you try to avoid doing that. This is like something that is of the contrasting nature of, how a professional thinks of things and how a normal person thinks of these things.
This is
Like,
spot on, and that's where people think that buying under school zones is pretty good, but you're paying a premium. And again, you've paid a premium because there's reputation of the school, and if the reputation fades, for example, the prices would drop, which happened in Point Cook in Alameda catchment, where the principal left and joined the saltwater catchment, and so saltwater was like literally 40, 50% down, and that went up. So we were actually buying in saltwater because there's a spillover, right? Not everyone runs after schools. People, affordability is one thing as well. But then, yeah, so condition and compliance checks, any
yeah,
development approvals in the surround, which are given to us by Stash. So we check that. And then again, have we got the walkthroughs and everything? Also looking at the walkthroughs, video walkthroughs, and who has given those walkthroughs to us. The
Yep.
possession, is it vacant possession? Is it already tenanted? And vacant possession, again, but there can be a tenant and a vacant possession, and I'll come to the post-purchase support and tenant onboarding. But that's fairly what we look at from a property
Fairly
standpoint.
extensive. Fairly
Yep.
extensive.
Coming to negotiations. Look, I'll keep it short.
Yes.
It's a discussion in itself. What I can simply tell you is understand the agent's way of working and vendor circumstances, right? And build that rapport with the agent, but don't lose any opportunities. Don't miss opportunities to take advantage of the notions of the agent. I'll give you an example. I was talking to an agent and I said the property is pretty small, and he said, "Oh yes, Ashish, I also know that. I've told the clients. You see, this is a notion." He actually admitted to me that he thinks the property is small, which means in his mind there is a hesitation. If you can't believe in the product that you sell, how would you sell that product? And
Hmm.
this will help you to identify agents as well. But again, knowing the price helps because you can cross question the agent. Why have you kept this price? And this is where the comparables would help, right? So valuation is again a skill in itself. Most people will look at the standard reports and say this is where we would base our pricing, but you go back and check the inferior and superior properties, the similar comparables, and find a range. And if it's outside of that range, cross question the agent. So
For our clients, like whoever comes to me who's buying a property, I tell them that if you spot a property, run the numbers by me because we have access to core logic. We can see the estimated value, the high and the low end. It's not going to be accurate, but it's going to give you an idea of what you're buying into. And after all, obviously look at the comparable sales in real estate, the recently sold properties. That's going to give you a better idea of that.
look, it's a good indicator, but in a growing market, it's lacking. In a stagnant market, it gives higher valuations. Sometimes the confidence is not there. If the property is renovated, it won't give the right price, and then you won't be able to figure out. The only way you figure out is looking at what has sold in last at least 3 months. And if you can't, like development sites and acreages, I go back to 1 or 2 years because you can't see the similar comparables, and then you define the comparables and the price, come with an estimate, and then talk to the agent. And sometimes it's still way out. And people pay for it. Like I'm talking to someone today, and she said, I'll just go by what agent says. And I said, that's fine. Just it's your call. And then don't, because you build that repo, and if still you miss out on that opportunity, ask the agent, look, we know the price. Now we know what we've missed for. Don't still lowball because others are paying. It could be the price. Just say, do you have any similar opportunities? I'm ready. I can pay you now. Um,
Okay, so I have a question for you regarding you or maybe other buyer's agents because there's a lot of things around buyer's agents, notions around buyer's agents that you guys are friends with your real estate agents and you're trying to help them sell them faster. That's why they are selling to you. What is the answer for that? Like, are you in cahoots with these sales agents? Are you the extended arm of them? What's happening? Why do they in a hot market? It's hard to get property. If I'm putting an offer, they are preferring buyer's agents offer, the individual clients offer. What is that? Why is that happening?
Look, I think there is a shift in the industry at this point. The agents talk to us, and they look. We built that relationship. Like I gifted about 35 bottles of wine to the agents that I was working with last year. Why? Because no one does that for them. And now when I'm talking to the agent, some agents would say, Ashish, I've got this property coming. Do you have a client? Even before the property hits the market, he's given me that property. We've done the valuation. We are ready with everything. We get a client. We tell them, look, we can get access to this. And believe or not, some properties I'm buying 20, 30K less than market price, even in a hot market. So I can't promise that, of course, but
Yeah,
there's a
that just
relationship.
that can happen. That is you because of the relationship that you have.
Yeah,
What
and I can
also
give.
I spoke with a few real estate agents because I'm in the market as well, and sometimes I go through buyer's agents, sometimes I just contact them directly because at this stage when I have some relations with them and ask them why is that happening? Why are you selling to buyer's agents? They say because of our relationship with the seller as well. If a buyer's agent is being consistent in giving us good clients, we don't have to risk with someone who may not be qualified. We are getting qualified clients. So if we are putting the offer, we are confident by the seller that this will get done, right? So they are, even if it's sometimes a lower price, they would prefer to a buyer's agent than rather risking to someone who may not be that qualified in terms of finance. That they helps them build their confidence and relation with the seller when they present the offers. So that's what I was told by sales agents, which was across the board. I got the same answer. I'm like, okay, maybe that could also be a factor which we don't think about when we put offers. So maybe that can help the people listening to
Look,
that,
let
be
me let me
professional in your
s-
approach.
let me sum it in one line. There is an opportunity cost in this market of not being prepared well. Simple. So again, I think we can skip and move on, but that's
Okay.
how I would sum it, right? Now
That
coming
answers the
back
question.
last, sorry.
No, I'm saying that answers the question that I had.
Absolutely. And just going with a final touch, look, this is the questionnaire I've built for the agents. Why? Because it's not me who's sourcing. I have to then give the same knowledge to my team. How can I impart that knowledge? By formalizing everything. So the way agent work and taking more opportunities for the agent, understanding vendor circumstances, property maintenance and other general questions, seeking price offer guides, even general vibe on area and surroundings. How do you feel the area is? What type of people stay there? What do they do for living? That's how you can build. Now 80% of
Yeah.
the areas I've driven myself that I've recommended to clients, so I don't buy in random areas, but
Yeah.
this does wonders. You can do the same. Some agents will spend hours with you. This that look, there are very generous people out there.
Yeah.
Again, all right, so I think we've done most things. This at the end, what I'd cover is the final part, pillar 4, which is post purchase support. So you've married with the property. Now it's time to make sure it doesn't age
Yeah.
badly and empty your bank account. So most
Yeah.
agents are like bad dates. So they disappear after the fun part, and we stay, we check in and help you to make sure you don't regret your life decisions. So, but coming back, the most important part is tenant onboarding, making sure there are documents in place. I've seen a lot of ups and downs here, liaising
Yeah.
with property managers and everyone that is involved, support around minor repairs, pre-settlement. We even put conditions like, if it's a vacant possession, can we use the pictures? Because the pictures are actually owned by the owner or the real estate agent. We
Sure.
take that approval straight away.
Yep.
Can we advertise the property the moment it goes unconditional? You have the opportunity to negotiate now. If it comes later, no one's going to negotiate or even listen to you.
Yeah.
Asking property managers to do pre-settlement inspections, working on depreciation reports, expense management with your accountants, and then your final reviews. But that's fairly what the process is. Um, Now let's do questions. I'm